Hello everyone, welcome to Splunk Guru. So today we are going to see how we can ingest ingest the logs from S3 bucket to Splunk. So you might have the application which is processing the logs and keeping them uh, in the S3 bucket, and eventually want to ingest those logs to Splunk. So there are various approaches you can follow to get those logs ingested to Splunk. The first one is obviously you can use the add-on in Splunk, the out of the box add-on being provided by Splunk. So you can install that in your Splunk web UI, and using that you can start pulling logs from your S3 bucket. The other way to achieve this can be configuring the Lambda function. So what you can do, you can write your code and then using the hack token, that is basically HTTP event collector token. So using that token, you can make the calls to Splunk and then push the logs to Splunk. So these are two main methods to get the S3 bucket logs ingested to Splunk. So we are going to discuss about the first one today. And I'm going to explain it from the scratch, starting from provisioning the instance in AWS Cloud, installing the Splunk, accessing the Splunk using the web port 8000, and then installing the add-on, creating the bucket in AWS Cloud, and then making the configs. Okay, so be with me, bear with me, just follow me along, and then you should be able to get your S3 bucket logs ingested to Splunk. Okay, let's start. So here I am on the AWS console. I have already logged in. So I'll quickly provision an instance to install this Splunk. So let's click on launch instances. I'm giving the name Splunk and we'll pick the size medium. Because it's just for the testing, so I'm just picking the medium instance, or we can pick large as well, that's fine. So let's pick large. Key pair, if you haven't, like, you always have an option to create the key pair. So I already created few key pairs. I'm going to use one of them. Security group, also I have few security groups configured, so I will use one of them. You can configure your security group and make sure that all the required ports are open there. Root volume, I'm going to make it okay, 15 is fine, I think. That's it. I will launch instance. So my instance has been provisioned now. Let's check for running ones. Okay, so it's being initialized now. It will take few more couple of seconds and then it should be up and running. Okay, so now the instance is up and running. Let's access it. So I will use PuTTY to access it. So just make sure you use the right private key that you have used to provision the instance. Otherwise, you won't be able to access it. Perfect. So now I can access my instance. So I will quickly install Splunk here. Let's download Splunk quickly and install it. So to download it, I am already here under splunk.com. Go to products, free trials and downloads. Let's pick the enterprise free trial. Since we are using Linux, so I'm going to pick the Linux one and we'll download it. So once the download completes, what we'll do, we'll extract the Splunk file and then we'll start it. Okay, so it's the latest version. There are many changes. That's why it took time to extract it completely. Anyway, so now it's extracted. If you'll see, you have the Splunk directory now. So let's start Splunk. Start. And then what I will do, I will skip reading the license. So now Splunk is being started on this instance. Perfect. So now Splunk has been started on this instance. Let's access the web of it. Or let me enable SSL first and then we will access it. So to enable SSL, what you need to do, you just need to run Splunk enable web SSL. You'll ask for the username password, what you used during the installation. So once it's configured, you need to restart. So you no longer will be able to access it using the HTTP now. You will have to use HTTPS. That's why we enable web SSL on this instance. So it's restarting, it's saying all preliminary checks passed. So anytime soon it will be up. Fine. So now Splunk has been restarted. Let's access the front end. And since we have enabled web SSL, we need to use HTTPS and then the web port, which is 8000. Again, you need to use the username password which you provided during installation. Fine. So now your Splunk instance is up and running. What we are going to achieve today is we will be using Splunk. So the ultimate goal what we are trying to achieve today is that we want our S3 logs to be ingested to Splunk, right? So for example, this is your AWS cloud and you have S3 bucket here. And then you want to process those logs to Splunk. So I think I already have one sample bucket here. We can use this one or I'll show you how to create a bucket as well. Fine. So to do that, there are two ways. Either you can use the add-on or like as I said earlier, you can use the Lambda function using hack token. So we will use the add-on method in this session. So let's look out for the AWS add-on. Splunk add-on for Amazon Web Services. So this is the one. So you need to again provide your username password here. So while this add-on installs here, let's configure the so let's configure the account here that we are going to use to configure that add-on. So in your AWS console, go to IAM, click on users, then create user. So we'll give it a name like Splunk underscore add-on, something like this, just so we know that for what purpose we created this user. And then what we will do, we will not add this user to any group. What we will do, we will directly assign S3 read access because this account has to read the data from S3 bucket. So what we will do, we will provide only S3 read only access. So this is done. create user. So after creating the user, you need to create the access key and secret access key because that's what you need to configure the add-on. So here on this Splunk, if you see the add-on has been successfully installed, but you are yet to configure it, right? So if you click on this Splunk add-on for AWS, you see an option to create the inputs, but you cannot create the inputs directly. To configure the inputs, you need the account. So to create the account, click on configuration and then click on add. So here again, we will give a name like S3 logs to Splunk, something like that, and key ID that you are going to get from here, from the AWS console. So create access key. Here again, you get plenty of options to choose. So in our case, this is for CLI. If you're going to interact with S3 bucket using CLI, local code, or on your EC2 instance if any local app is running. In our case, we are going to use from these Splunk, so that's third-party service. We'll confirm it. Nothing. So now our access key and secret access key created. So copy the access key, copy secret access key, and then region category global. Because if you know that S3 is a global service, it's not a region specific service, right? So we define the category as global and then add. Okay, so if it's saving successfully, it means it's able to interact with your AWS account. There are no issues, no errors. Now, once this account has been configured, you go back to inputs. Now we can try to configure the inputs. But before we do that, let me see if, let's create a bucket here first. So the bucket name should be unique and it's a global service. So give something like Splunk or AWS S3 logs to AWS S3 logs. Everything we are going to keep default. We are not allowing it publicly. So we are blocking the public access and then create. Okay. I think underscore is not allowed. So let's try hyphen. Yeah. So bucket is created now. AWS S3 logs Splunk. So go to that bucket and try to upload some sample file. So I have one sample file here on the desktop. I have this sample file. So I will upload the same. Then click on upload. So let me show you what's there in this file. So it's related to S3 access logs only. If you'll see bucket logs, delete logs, related to S3 access logs only. Okay, so now the file as bucket has been created. We uploaded the file as well. Now we'll try to pull that file here in Splunk. So to create the input, you see lots of options here. Based on your requirement, you can configure this add-on. But in our case, we are going to use the custom data type because we need to ingest the file from S3 bucket to Splunk. Again, here you get two types of S3 ingestion, generic and then the SQL based. So we are going to use the generic S3. SQL based S3 is like when you have the lots of data which has to be ingested to Splunk. So what's being recommended now? You try to ingest the data in a queue. You keep on sending files in a queue and then Splunk keep on pulling them from the queue to avoid the load or any kind of congestion there. But in our case, just for testing, we are going to use the generic S3 because we have one small file. Okay, here also you can see, right, this warning. Amazon S3 buckets with an excessive number of files or abundant size will result in significant performance degradation. So that's what I was saying, right? So you can try using SQS based solution if you have lots of data to be ingested to Splunk. Fine. So now name we will give S3 sample logs. Account we created this S3 logs to Splunk. Then the bucket, it should populate the bucket now. So we have two buckets. So the one we created as AWS S3 logs Splunk. Start date just for testing. I'm giving from 1st of Feb. So any log log file which has the events after this date, after this time, it's going to pick only those logs. You have some advanced settings here, so you can change the polling interval and all. So like if you want to change, you can change to every 60 seconds. Every minute, it's going to poll the events from. It will look out for any new events there, and if anything is there, it will poll. Index, I'm going to use the default one, which is main index. And then source type also you can change it. So I'm using AWS S3 for now and add. Fine. So this input has been created and it's in active status now. So now let's try to see if we got any data to Splunk. Fine. So we got all 8 events and all are from 19th only. If in this file also, if you see, all events are from 19th Feb and the timing 10:15 to 12:45. So we got all the events polled to Splunk now. So that's how you can configure S3 logs ingestion to Splunk. And this is one of the methods we discussed today using the add-on. But obviously you can use the different approach using Lambda function, and by using the hack token, you can start making calls to Splunk and then passing the data to Splunk. So that's another way of achieving it. Okay, I think that's it for this session. Do let me know in the comment box if you have any queries or if you want me to cover anything more on this topic. Thanks.